In 2005, they made a LEGO Star Wars game. It had no dialogue, broken AI, and zero reason to work. But it was also kind of incredible. Let's talk about why. LEGO Star Wars, the video game, shouldn't have worked. A licensed Star Wars title, a LEGO tie-in, a kid-friendly action platformer in the mid-2000s. By all accounts, this was supposed to be another bargain bin filler, the kind of game you get bundled with a used PlayStation 2 and forget existed until years later. And yet, it kicked off one of the most successful family gaming franchises of all time. What started as a simple idea, what if we turn Star Wars into LEGO, ended up reshaping both brands forever. No one expected it to be good. Some publishers even passed on it. But when it finally released in 2005, it defied expectations in a way that even George Lucas couldn't retcon. This is a look back on LEGO Star Wars the video game, how it came out of nowhere, nailed the formula on its first try, and built the foundation for nearly 2 decades of brick-based chaos. In the early 2000s, LEGO wasn't exactly thriving. The company was bleeding money, its games division was in freefall, and its attempts at multimedia were landing with all of the grace of Jar Jar Binks doing a backflip. And on the Star Wars side, fans were halfway through the prequel trilogy, still trying to figure out whether they hated sand more than Hayden Christensen's acting.
I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating, and it gets everywhere. Not like here. Here everything is soft and smooth.
Then, from the ashes of collapsing business models and a galaxy of questionable licensing decisions, came an idea so simple it almost felt like a joke. What if we turned Star Wars into a LEGO game? Traveler's Tales, a developer best known for platformers like Crash Twinsanity and Sonic R, pitched a demo where LEGO Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon Jinn sliced up battle droids while studs exploded everywhere. It was goofy, low stakes, and strangely addictive. It also didn't have a publisher because most of them looked at it and said, yeah, no one's gonna buy this. Activision famously passed, THQ said it was too niche, but Eidos said yes, probably because they had just published Backyard Wrestling 2 and were in no position to judge anyone else's decisions. Somehow, it all came together. LEGO, LucasArts, Traveler's Tales, and Eidos. And in April 2005, LEGO Star Wars the video game dropped just a month before Revenge of the Sith hit theaters, essentially spoiling the movie for kids one mini-kit at a time. LEGO Star Wars wasn't complicated. You picked a character, ran around slapping droids into pieces, used the Force to stack furniture, and hoovered up shiny plastic studs like your life depended on it. That's it. That was the game. And it worked beautifully. The controls were basic, the puzzles were usually just put the thing on the glowing thing, and the AI ranged from mildly helpful to actively trying to die. But the magic was in how it all came together. The simplicity was the point. Whether you were force-lifting platforms or spamming lightsaber swings until something exploded, the game never asked much of you, and in return, you never wanted to stop playing it. It helped that the combat was just tactile enough to feel satisfying, slashing droids in half, flinging objects around with the Force, or deflecting lasers back at enemies. It all had a kind of low-res crunch to it. The physics were floaty, the hitboxes were questionable, and the targeting system was drunk 90% of the time. But none of it mattered, because no matter what happened, you were still earning studs. The stud economy was genius. They were everywhere. Destroying scenery? Studs. Solving a puzzle? Studs. Accidentally blowing up your co-op partner and stealing their studs before they could respawn? Even more studs. It was a reward system that hit the same dopamine receptors as a slot machine. Except instead of money, you were spending it on characters like Kit Fisto and a gonk droid that couldn't jump. And of course, there was the couch co-op, the definitive way to play. Nothing built sibling rivalries like trying to platform together while sharing a screen tether. One person always ran ahead, dragging the other into oblivion. Or worse, they'd accidentally kill you and pretend that was the camera's fault. And yet, you'd still keep playing, because even when the gameplay broke, it was still fun. This wasn't a refined system, it was chaos held together with Lego bricks, and somehow, that's exactly what made it great. Each of LEGO Star Wars' 17 story levels was essentially a compact playground where you smashed everything in sight, solved the world's easiest puzzles, and occasionally got into slap fights with aliens. These weren't sprawling epics, they were bite-sized recreations of major prequel scenes, usually boiled down to walk right and destroy everything. But they were designed smart. Every level had two core modes, story and free play. In story mode, you were locked into whatever characters the plot demanded. Usually a couple of Jedi and a droid somehow made things worse. But once you beat a level, you unlocked free play, which let you replay it with any character you've unlocked. That's when the game opened up. It was the Metroidvania formula, minus the part where you actually have to remember where anything is. Each level became a checklist of secrets. Find all 10 minikits, get true Jedi status, rinse, repeat. And the best part? None of it overstayed its welcome. The average level lasted about 10 minutes, tops. You could finish the whole game in an afternoon, but still feel like there was a ton left to do, because LEGO Star Wars wasn't just about finishing levels, it was about completing them. 100%. Stud bar full, minikits found, every background chair smashed into currency. Compare that to modern LEGO games where you spend 40 minutes running around an open world collecting bricks just to unlock a side mission to collect more bricks. In 2005, Traveler's Tales knew how to keep it lean. No filler, just fun-sized chaos with a plastic lightsaber. One of the most bizarrely brilliant things about LEGO Star Wars is that it tells the entire prequel trilogy without a single line of dialogue. No voice acting, no subtitles, no dramatic monologues about sand. Just LEGO characters grunting and flailing their arms around like they're in a silent film directed by a child with a sugar high. The storytelling is pure pantomime. Qui-Gon gets stabbed, he clutches his chest and keels over like someone unplugged him. Padme dies of sadness, she faints like she just saw the price of the Death Star's electric bill. Complex emotional arcs are reduced to head tilts and over-exaggerated size, and somehow, it works. It doesn't bother trying to explain the politics of the Galactic Senate or why everyone keeps trusting Palpatine. Instead, it speedruns the entire trilogy with the kind of slapstick charm that makes even the most tragic scenes feel like Saturday morning cartoons. And honestly, that might be the best way to experience the prequels. There's a reason LEGO Star Wars stuck the landing while so many other licensed games face-planted into obscurity. It didn't take itself seriously, and that turned out to be its greatest strength. Star Wars by 2005 was already knee-deep in lore, fan debates, and midichlorian discourse. But this game didn't care about any of that. It turned the galaxy's most dramatic moments into playground slapstick. It let you throw a chair at Count Dooku and then play as him 5 minutes later. It was a complete tonal reset, and people loved it. Kids saw it as an accessible way into Star Wars. Adults saw it as a surprisingly well-made game that didn't talk down to anyone. And parents saw it as a way to buy peace and quiet for a couple of hours. Everyone won. But beyond the charm and the studs and the endless breaking of chairs, the game also nailed something that a lot of tie-ins didn't. It actually respected its source material. Not in a sacred relic kind of way, but in the sense that it got it. It understood what made Star Wars fun, and just exaggerated it in brick form. Lightsabers, space battles, Jedi flips, Wookiees ripping arms off. All still here, just with the occasional banana peel gag added. And despite being aimed at kids, the game didn't play like shovelware. It was polished, it was replayable, it was genuinely creative. Traveler's Tales could have coasted on the license, but instead they built something that felt handcrafted. Chaotic, sure, but handcrafted chaos. LEGO Star Wars worked because it remembered something a lot of Star Wars content forgot. People just want to have fun in that universe, and if that means beating Darth Sidious to death with a mop, so be it. LEGO Star Wars didn't just succeed, it established an entire subgenre. It was the test run that worked a little too well. Before this, LEGO games were scattered, awkward, and mostly forgotten. After this, they had a formula, and Traveler's Tales never looked back. That formula? Take a beloved franchise, boil it down to its most iconic moments, retell everything with mute plastic people, and fill every corner of the screen with stuff to break. Repeat endlessly. Batman, Indiana Jones, Harry Potter, Marvel, Lord of the Rings. They all followed the LEGO Star Wars blueprint to near identical results. And it all started with this weird little experiment in 2005. The structure didn't change much over the years. You still had a hub world, you still had free play mode, you still had hundreds of characters, most of whom you'd never willingly use. And you definitely still had stud farming, which only got more unhinged with each release. By the complete saga, players were grinding for 1.2 million studs to unlock a variant of Yoda that was literally just a Force Ghost. But even as the game scaled up, the core appeal never really changed. It was that same mix of simplicity, humor, and obsessive collectible hunting that LEGO Star Wars pioneered. Without this game, there's no LEGO Batman, no LEGO Marvel, probably no Skywalker Saga reboot that took 5 years and 12 delays. It didn't just prove that LEGO could make great games, it proved that people actually wanted them, and that maybe, just maybe, a toy company and a space opera could build something very special together. LEGO Star Wars the video game is clunky, it's short, the combat's a mess, the camera has trust issues, and half the characters are just slightly different versions of each other, but none of that matters, because in 2005, this game did something rare. It took the licensed property, treated it with actual care, and somehow made it better by turning it into a joke. It wasn't just a good LEGO game, or a good Star Wars game, it was fun. Endlessly, effortlessly fun. It didn't need photorealistic graphics or skill trees or emotional depth, it just needed bricks. Lots and lots of exploding bricks. And nearly 2 decades later, it still holds up. Maybe not in every mechanical sense, but in spirit. Boot it up today and it's still charming, still satisfying, and still one of the best examples of how to make a game that genuinely everyone can enjoy. Not bad for something nobody wanted to publish. If you played LEGO Star Wars back in the day, drop your favorite memory in the comments. And if you enjoyed this look back, consider liking the video and subscribing. I've got more deep dives, weird retrospectives, and other chaos on the way.